when you look back, you were there, what, 20? How long were you at ESPN? Was it 27 years?
27. I came there in
Yeah.
94 and I left in May of 21, 5 years ago.
Which is a fabulous run. But when you look back on that, for me, it was like just doing SportsCenter with you I always look forward to that because I knew I would be smiling and laughing throughout. And, you can take it seriously, but then you don't have to take it seriously. That's what I felt. We were all sports fans. It wasn't life or death for us, yet we got it because we understood what the viewer wanted from us. And you were so entertaining, and yet you could turn on a switch and, like you said, be the serious newsman, like a Walter Cronkite when we had to do a serious story.
Was always funny because nobody wanted the serious story, right? You wanted just to have a big party. Hey, let's go to the triple overtime game and highlight, and funny interviews and good highlight calls. But you got interrupted with real life, but that was our job. If it was important enough to put in the show, you had to kind of like settle down and like, all right, now I'm going to read a serious story, which was sometimes hard to do when 1 minute before we're like clowning about top 10 plays or whatever, what I mean? Like, so typically the producers were smart enough to, you put it somewhere where it's protected, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they'd always warn like, hey, serious story kind of, so that I was just kind of like lean back while the other person, or they would if I were reading it. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think you'd say the same. Didn't we have way more fun when it was just a big festival of highlights and jokes? And
I loved it. That was my thing, doing highlights. That was my thing.
Yeah.
I didn't care about being on camera. I just like having fun over the highlights and then back and forth chemistry with someone like you. I mean, then you knew the show was great when you had that chemistry with your on-air partner. Because I felt, you get this question a lot. I bet I always do. Oh, who's the best person to work with? I'm like, I'm not going to single out one person, but I will say the best people to work with were the people that felt like it was a team and they didn't have their own agenda. I was going to say the
exact same thing. Like, and it was very few cases, I'd say, in my experience, that I didn't feel that way about the person next to me. Very few. Most of the time, you're rooting for each other, and sometimes I knew a little more about one sport, not many, but football I knew pretty well, and horse racing. I didn't know much about hockey, and I needed like, how do you say this guy's name? Right? Like, you'd hopefully help each other as teammates to have a clean show. Because even as much as we wanted to clown around and have fun, always it was get the score right, get the name right, get the facts right. It's the old first do no harm, right? Get it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had some rough hockey calls. I probably wasn't the greatest hockey highlight call. I got smarter with time, though. You don't need to name 5 Czech Republic guys in a row and then a Russian scoring. You say great passing by the Canucks. Look at the movement or whatever. You just fill some space,
exactly.
Pause,
you're stumbling and bumbling, to quote our leader Chris Berman. If you name every name,
I mean, God bless those who can do it. God, if you had me be a hockey, literally like a play-by-play, it would be boom goes the dynamite. It would be really bad. It would I'd fall apart.
You did so many for good reason. They picked the right guy. You did so many of the This Is SportsCenter commercials, and they're so classic. What's your favorite?
Man, I think it's almost like a 4-way tie. It's almost impossible to just say this over that. But Stuart Scott and I, the Big Buddy basketball program, that's right up there, I'd say.
Yes.
And the premise, Dan Patrick does the narration and the setup. Talks about how we give back to the community and we're always trying to help out kids, whatever. And then Stuart and I go to the gym and there was no script. The director's just like, go out there and be an absolute jerk. There was no script. And we did. Stuart checked the kid, a little 4 foot tall, he blocks him. I'm screaming at the kid, your parents signed the permission slip, get up, little, It
was pretty good.
Get up, walk off. Your parents signed the permission slip, get up, man.
And it was chaos and a blast. And then people don't know, we oftentimes, most of the time I should say, we were working that night. I was on the 11 or I was on the 1. Oh, and by the way, you're also shooting 3 commercials during, or however many you're putting in.
Right.
So there's other people who get paid to be in commercials. You and I have done a couple together, like the kind where somebody gives you money, not the ESPN kind where you sign for $1, but
we didn't get any extra for doing those commercials.
But I wanted to be in them. We all did. So they knew they had us because it was to your benefit to be featured in these funny things, right? Why would you not want to? But, you know, my point was, you come in, you do your meeting and you're typing, and then from 6 to 8:30, you're shooting these commercials. You're on the air in like 2 hours and you haven't even looked at scripts, you know, like, so some of that was kind of chaotic. I'd say another one was one of my first ones. The premise was that I let it all go to my head, and I'm talking shit to Bob Lee, and I'm trying to get my girlfriend hired as a fitness beach kind of girl or whatever.
Yeah.
What was that one called? They had a name for it. I forget. I'm asking Bob Lee, like, where's the buffet? I got a mink coat coming out of a limo. Another one, me and Dikembe Mutombo staring at cloud shapes and just talking about, he's like, that one looks like George Washington, you know. All of them were funny. And I thought the best ones were when we went way off the cliff, where it just got really, really silly instead of, you know, playing off names or current event or something. But, you know, their success rate was very high. You know, I'd say high 80s, 90%, really funny top to bottom. There are only a few that you'd argue like, they didn't think that one through.
Yeah, people cared more about when they talk to us. Whenever you run into people, they're like, oh, that commercial. They didn't care about the show.
That was kind of an insult and a compliment at the same time.
Sure.
It's kind of like, you know, to say they like the art of that more than the actual product that we were out there supposed to be working on.
Yeah, but it was so much fun. You know, you did so many different projects outside of SportsCenter, and thank goodness they let your personality come out with these projects, like Main Street, Main Event. Of all the things you did, I'm going to ask you to pick a favorite of like something that you never thought you could make happen and you did it.
I got Stevie Wonder to say, I can't be at the baseball all-star game. I have a high ankle sprain. I'd say that's hands down the greatest thing I've ever done. But there were other things that were so fun. And so, like, you named them all. Main Street was that's Benson. He's got the squeaky toy again. Main Street was a situation comedy done in miniature, like little 3 and 4 minute. You were in one. We did Aubrey Plaza, Allison Becker, John Glazer, Ben Schwartz, all these. They've all now made huge success, you know, particularly Aubrey. And that was kind of like their first big national thing, if you will. Funny show, Josh Shelov, Todd Pellegrino, and we all put it together. Those guys did a great job making it happen. But yeah, the fact that they said, sure, let's do a comedy now, you know, like it had never been done. The part of the problem at the time, though, for the dissemination, I think, was there was just ESPN.com and ESPN TV. There was no app. Smartphones didn't even exist, or they were barely starting. So it wasn't the same environment as today. I could imagine that if there were an Instagram, you know, a different way to put it out,
it would have exploded. It would have been. It was ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time.
It was so made for social media.
You know what? I just looked at one of the other ones. They always took my name and added another word: Main Street, Main Event. So the football stories were the quote unquote main event, and I essentially would either make up a story entirely or take a real story and just do a little parody of it or whatever. So we had the fake Seattle Seahawk, Kim Il-sung, we called him. He was a 5'5" Korean guy that smokes cigarettes while he plays. But Holmgren loved him and loved that we brought him back every year for the next iteration. We did it for like 10 years in a row. The one I just showed Bryn, our daughter's friend, Danny, was the Super Bowl one from Phoenix. Remember Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos? Tony Sirico had the big sideburn. Passed away, rest in peace. He'd done me a favor or two. He'd been in a couple of my other bits. And he calls me like Monday of Super Bowl week, and our story that we were going to work on had just fallen apart. It was no longer going to happen. We were like, what are we going to do for a story? And you know, we had all week to figure it out. He calls me and says, hey, I need 4 tickets. I said, for what? The Super Bowl. It's really hard. I mean, I'll try, definitely. He says, I know you'll do it, kid. And he just hangs up.
Oh, no.
So it was almost like in real life, I'd been threatened by a soprano.
By a mobster.
Figure. Yeah. And so we decided, let's just make that our story. We just announced that I've been threatened by this Sopranos guy, right? And I went all over trying to get tickets. We ended up having a little person. His title was Midget Actor of Phoenix, Mark Trombino. We hired him. We blew up a car. Dave Craig was on a horse at one point. Michael Clark Duncan did the voiceover. Stacy Keebler slapped me across the face for some reason. Like, we had all these crazy elements all in one little story that we threw together by an emergency. So that, among many, the wider world thing was a blast, traveling around the
Yeah,
world and doing all these unique sports. It's kind of hard to like rate one over the other because I also
sure.
still like doing Sports Center
Is
was
there
fun.
something that you wish you could have done that we weren't able to do? Or maybe the
Hmm.
boss has said, Kenny, I don't think so.
Oh, we had one plot line. I can't even say it. This is a family program that
Is
was,
it?
yeah. I'll tell you. I'll tell you on the side. I don't. It's too far. Too far. Um, honestly, I didn't feel like I got held back. Like no, you can't do it. It was more
Okay.
sometimes the edit of what I turned in. Like, okay, we went out and did it. We thought of it. We wrote it. We did it. And then somebody would like, I'm going to take that sentence out. It's like that's
Yeah.
the kind of editing that bugged me,
Yeah.
because you can show one thing to 15 different people, and they might each have a different suggestion. I sometimes think they should let people, and they did for the most part. If somebody has a certain skill set, just leave them alone. Just keep it under 3 minutes. Instead of trying to micromanage people. But all in all, I can't really say I had too many complaints that way. I had probably more freedom than the next guy, but you always think about the ones that didn't work out. So to be honest, sometimes we would add something to the script that we didn't care about, like something way over the top, to let them take that out. Then we would get to keep the rest of the stuff that we really wanted in. So sorry, we've tricked you guys a couple times.
How great is Kenny Mayne? So great. And I told you, so great